The night was heavy with silence when Clara unlocked the old trunk that her husband had kept hidden for years. The scent of leather and dust filled the room, but it wasn't the smell that made her hands tremble. It was the contents. Letters, deeds, faded photographs, and a single brass key with the words Black Hollow Ranch engraved on it. For years, her husband, Thomas, had forbidden her from setting foot on that ranch. Every time she had asked about it, his expression darkened, and he would simply whisper, "That place isn't for you, Clara. Promise me you'll never go there." But now he was gone. The love of her life, the man she had built her world around, had been taken by a sudden illness, leaving her drowning in grief and unanswered questions. And in her grief, she was left with one unbearable thought: what was so forbidden about the ranch that even in death, he had left behind a key? Before we dive deeper into Clara's journey, don't forget, if stories like this stir your heart and captivate your imagination, make sure to like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to Soul Spark for more stories that touch the soul and spark the mind. Clara stared at the key all night, sleepless and restless. She couldn't shake the weight of curiosity pressing on her chest. By dawn, she had made up her mind. She packed a small bag, wore her late husband's worn leather jacket, and drove out of town into the wilderness, following the faded map she found folded beneath the key. The road twisted like a snake, leading her into valleys choked with fog and forests that seemed to whisper in the wind. She could almost hear Thomas's voice in every gust, pleading with her not to go. Yet the pull was stronger than her fear. When she finally reached the gates of Black Hollow Ranch, her breath caught. The place looked abandoned, its wooden fences splintered, barns sagging, and tall grass swallowing the fields. The air was unnaturally still, as though time itself had stopped here. She pushed the gate open, its rusty hinges shrieking, and drove inside. The ranch house loomed in the distance, gray and weathered. Her hands tightened around the steering wheel, but she pressed forward. When she stepped out of the car, she felt it. An eerie stillness, like 1,000 eyes watching from the trees. Inside the house, dust coated every surface, but signs of life lingered. A cracked coffee mug sat on the table, as though someone had just left it there. A coat hung by the door. Clara's heart raced. Thomas had never lived here while she knew him. So who had? Her exploration led her to the basement, where the air grew colder with every step. When she unlocked the heavy wooden door, her flashlight beam landed on something that made her knees weaken. The walls were lined with photographs, hundreds of them, of Thomas, but not with her. He stood beside another woman, a beautiful, solemn-faced woman holding 2 children. Clara's breath hitched. The dates scrawled beneath the photos stretched back more than 20 years. Her heart shattered as the truth clawed at her. Her husband had lived a double life. But then, the floor creaked behind her. Clara spun, the flashlight trembling in her hand. A boy no older than 16 stood in the shadows. His eyes were piercingly familiar, Thomas's eyes. And in that frozen moment, Clara understood. These weren't just strangers, they were his children. The boy didn't speak at first, only stared at her with a mixture of confusion and hostility. When he finally broke the silence, his voice cracked. "Who are you? Why do you have my father's jacket?" Her world tilted. Clara's throat closed, but somehow words slipped out. "I am his wife." The silence that followed was unbearable, thick with betrayal, grief, and 1,000 unsaid words. The boy's face twisted with anger. "No, my mother was his wife. You're lying." Tears burned Clara's eyes. She realized then that the key her husband left wasn't an accident, it was an invitation. A cruel, painful gift. He wanted her to know, even if he hadn't had the courage to tell her in life. The days that followed were a storm of emotions. Clara learned of the second family, hidden away in this forbidden ranch, sustained by Thomas's secret visits and money funneled quietly through accounts. She met the woman in the photographs, Margaret, a strong, quiet woman who carried her heartbreak in silence. Clara wanted to hate her, but when their eyes met, she saw the same pain mirrored back. They were both victims of the same man's secrets. At first, the children wanted nothing to do with her. They looked at Clara with suspicion, resentment, and grief. But Clara, with all her brokenness, couldn't walk away. Something inside her whispered that maybe, just maybe, she was meant to be here. She stayed longer than she intended, helping repair the ranch, cooking meals, and sitting with Margaret in the evenings, the silence between them slowly softening. There were nights when she would cry herself to sleep, But there were also mornings when the children would laugh, and she'd catch herself smiling too. The ranch began to heal her in ways she didn't expect, and she began to see Thomas not as the flawless husband she once imagined, but as a flawed man whose choices had left scars on everyone he loved. One evening Clara walked the fields alone, the sun dipping low and casting the sky in fire. She thought about how grief had first brought her here, how betrayal had nearly broken her, but also how love, strange, messy, unexpected love, was beginning to grow from the ashes. She realized that sometimes the truth doesn't set you free all at once. Sometimes it breaks you, then teaches you how to build yourself again. And perhaps that was Thomas's final lesson, hidden in that key. That love is never simple. That forgiveness isn't a gift you give the dead. It's a gift you give yourself to keep living. Before we close, if Clara's story has touched you, don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Soul Spark for more stories that bring emotion, healing, and meaning to life's hidden corners. As Clara finally locked the ranch house one last time, she didn't feel frozen anymore. She felt alive, carrying with her the weight of the truth, but also the strength to face it. And as she drove away under the wide, starlit sky, she whispered a final goodbye to the man she had loved, and to the man she had finally come to understand. Because sometimes, the most forbidden places are the ones that show us who we truly are.